Welcome back to the Everyday Athlete channel. So for those few viewers that I do have, I've been super busy, so I do apologise for that. I've got a lot of big races coming up over the next couple of months. So I've got HYROX Glasgow in 2 weeks' time. I've got Warsaw in 6 weeks' time. I then have the Hybrid NW up at the Telford International Centre. I then have a ultra marathon, which is a backyard ultra, Red On, which is a 6.4 kilometre run every hour on the hour for as long as possible. So I've got a lot of training to be done. So I'm going to take you along on that journey. I've got a lot to record, a lot to talk about. This session is a strength session. And again, strength, I think it gets overlooked within sort of this hybrid racing scene. Everybody sees the Stravas, the long runs, the interval runs, the burpees, all the cardio, the classes. Nobody really looks at the strength or thinks about the strength. And whilst you don't need tons of strength, you do still need to be strong. Now, the sort of strength that I want to build is that sort of strength that carries across all of the stations within HYROX. And strength then reduces the cost within that race, and then the aerobic work increases recovery. When you combine the two, it just creates controllable racing. So session plan is got box front squats, trap bar deadlifts into box jumps, Bulgarian plyos, banded Nordics, hip thrusts, and then some single leg extensions. And then based on time, we may do some sled work, but I'm very fortunate that I can push my other work into another hour of the day. Being at the gym most of the day, I've got that ability to be able to do things in between clients, finding time that way. I still have a zone 2 run to do today, which will be about 60 to 80 minutes, but I'll do that later this evening, and I like to separate the two so I can eat well between. So to kick off, we are doing some front rack box squats with the barbell. So rep wise, we're going to be starting around 10 reps and just keep building until we drop down to about four reps. So it's sort of like working through all the different rep ranges from hypertrophy to strength. And then we're going to back off with some endurance sets of sort of 15 to 20 reps. The reason why this is in my programming is because when I looked back at previous races, one of the things that I really struggled with was that front loading of the wall balls. Now, the wall ball isn't necessarily super heavy, but it's just the amount of reps in which you have to do. And I was finding that by the end of the race, I was absolutely fried. My core strength was what gave out first. So I found myself folding, I found myself falling forwards. So I've changed back squats to front squats with the hope to combat that and just improve those wall balls. Also, one of the reasons I prefer to do it on quite a high box is that age-old problem of bad knees. So it's not too bad when I am lifting a 9 kg ball or lunging 30 kilo, but when the weight on the bar starts to get super heavy, I find that I've got a niggle in this right knee, and at full flexion, it just gives me a bit of pain. And it's not worth pushing past that pain in order just to get a full depth squat. So a box squat to save the knees. As I say, when it then transitions over into things like wall balls, yes, I can deep squat when doing a wall ball, but it doesn't give me the same level of pain, and it's something that I can withstand for the last sort of 4 to 5 minutes of the race. With front racking, we sit onto the box. I raise my heels because I like to reset every single rep. I don't like to just bounce off the box. I'm pushing from a dead stop every time. The weight that I can put on the bar is considerably less than what I can put on the bar when back squatting. But as I say, I feel like I'm getting way more bang for my buck with this exercise, and I feel like since implementing front rack box squats, my wall balls have improved within sims and within training. So I've gone from 60 to 80. And again, those rep ranges are going to drop. All the weight that's added. Eight and a half RPE, a few reps left in the tank. Don't really want to fail. It makes a big bang. And I feel stupid. So also, I want to be able to keep a relative good performance level across the entire training session. If I absolutely kill myself on front squats, that'll just have a negative impact on my next couple of exercises, trap bar deadlift, Bulgarian plyos, like Phew, 90 at 6 or 7 reps there. Right, 100 kilo. I'll stop at 5 there. I'm gonna go a little bit heavier. Probably could have got a few more there. So I think I'm gonna start, put another 5 on each side, 110, and then hopefully get 4. 110, 4 reps. This will be a PB on front squat. I'm going to sort of take 2 back offsets now. High volume, probably drop to just like 80 kilo, 75 kilo, and aim for 15, 20 reps just to build volume through those legs. And then we'll move straight onto trap bar deadlifts. So next up, we have a complete contrast. We've got trap bar deadlifts into box jumps. Now with this, we are looking at lifting heavy and then producing explosive force afterwards. And again, my mindset on this is that when I've come out the back of sleds, walking lunges, and I need to run fast and I need to be fast, I need to be explosive, this is then going to be key for that. So essentially I'm teaching my nervous system to produce force quickly, and in turn it's going to obviously help improve my posterior chain, power, trains that sort of triple extension and helps build that sort of elasticity from the explosive jumps that will help with running. That's the thought process anyway. Rep range, again, similar, 4x5 and then 5 box jumps afterwards. And the goal with these jumps isn't necessarily to jump high, but just to move fast. Next up is the Bulgarian split squat plyos. So that's same as a Bulgarian split squat, except there's a little jump. HYROX is unilateral. Lunges are unilateral. Running is unilateral. And if one leg is weaker than the other, that tends to show up when fatigued. So training those legs separately can help with that sort of symmetry of training so that you don't build a weakness through one of the legs. By adding explosiveness to this sort of static strength exercise, we're going to help strengthen those muscles around the knee, around the ankle, create foot stiffness, which is going to help translate to running, and just all around just help that sort of single leg force production. Are disgusting on their own, let alone adding a little jump in. These carry over into the lunges as well. So everything has its place. Now, so I'd say that most of my programming over the last 3 or 4 months has come from the back of hunters Academy of Strength that I did for a year has been based around the principles of that, with my own little added extra, knowing that, I know what my body can take, I know what I can put in, and obviously doing a program that isn't necessarily tailored to you is where you can start running into problems. I've sort of taken, as I say, the principles from that sort of blanket plan, applied it to myself, and added extra, taken away bits where needed. I know my volume tolerance. So yeah, and again, this is all sort of things that I've researched. This is like perceived anecdotal evidence from training that I've done previously. It's all a bit of a learning curve. You don't know until you race again whether you're going to be faster. You don't know whether the things that you're doing are working. Would it make sense for me to get a coach? Yeah. But again, I'm one of them that, whilst I would love a coach, I usually like to learn on my own. I feel like I put more effort in. I feel like it makes me think more. But it is something I'm seriously considering. I'm going to race Glasgow and Warsaw, get them out of the way, and then look at maybe getting a coach. I've got a few people in mind, but yeah, it's just picking the person that's right for me and seeing how I get on in these next couple of races to know about which direction I go in. So next up is the makeshift Nordic curl that I'm about to do. Banded Nordic curl, shall I say. I'd love to be able to do them without the band, but so like hamstrings are like the brakes when you're running, and if they can't decelerate properly, your stride essentially just collapses. So I am adding in Nordics to sort of help bulletproof that, should we say, help sort of protect against that fatigue later on in the race. So look, usually sort of after farmers carries, that's when I tend to slow down. That's when fatigue really sets in. So I'm just trying to bulletproof against that essentially. So what I do is band comes round and supports the torso, hook my heels against this bar, and then I try not to put my hands out, but I'm essentially controlling that eccentric down to the ground, and then I'm trying to come back up, but I will use a little bit of a push if needs be. So it's controlling that eccentric and back up. My running, I've been able to tolerate a lot more load. Oh, Jesus. What's absolutely crazy with those Nordics is it really highlights the weakness I've got in the back of my knee. So all of my issues with my right knee stem from, I snapped my PCL ligament in 2022. I was fortunate that I didn't need surgery, and it just sort of healed. I had MRI. The physio just said, cycle, don't run on it. I wasn't really running at the time anyway. I was doing a lot of mountain biking, so that massively helped. And yeah, and it just sort of healed on its own. But I think that is the stem of a lot of my issues, sort of the deep squat issue I've got with that right knee. I can load it in an RDL, but anything with a sort of knee hinge, I struggle massively with. So yeah, that's again one of the reasons why I want to try and keep working on them to just iron out those imbalances from leg to leg. So hip thrust done. Onto leg extensions now. So again, nothing special about these apart from just trying to iron out that weakness in the single leg, so unilateral work. And I feel like isolating that quad a little bit just helps with that little bit of fatigue that you get right at the end of the race. I've only ever had it once, and that was on walking lunges in Birmingham. Just felt a bit of cramp coming on the lunges, but I've not felt that since both pro races. So again, it's a heavier sandbag, and I've not felt it. So I can only hope that the work that I've been putting in over the last couple of months has massively helped. So fingers crossed. I'm back in this evening for a little bit of zone 1, zone 2 watt bike. So I'm in between clients. I couldn't get them to come sooner, so pointless me going home. So I thought I'd sit on the bike. So strength session this morning, I've done a 50-minute zone 2 run, and then probably going to do around 40 minutes on the bike. That should leave me quite nicely for tomorrow's harder session. So I put a story up earlier on my Instagram just asking some questions, and I've had a few people ask. So question number 1 is, what is your best tips for recovery after a race or a hard session? So from a recovery standpoint, you can go to great lengths to maximize recovery, from ice baths to saunas, which I don't currently do, but I plan on it. Once I've moved house and I can get my ice bath and my sauna up and running, then that's something I'm definitely going to start utilising. One of the biggest things for me after a race is I like to get a really protein and carb heavy meal in, and I like to get my electrolytes back. I sweat so much when racing, when training, so I'll need to sort of replenish hydration. So that's a big thing for me. I like to foam roll and I like to stretch. I'll then use compression leg sleeves. I feel like they do play a huge part in my day-to-day recovery, and I'll try and get a good night's sleep. It's really tough to get a good night's sleep, especially after a race, because I'm so hyped. But after a training session, I tend not to be as hyped. And then what I plan on doing the next day after a race is something nice and easy, usually a run, usually a cycle, just to flush the legs out so I'm not feeling stiff and horrendous. Next question is, what is my favourite station and what's my least favourite station in HYROX? And it's quite a hard question actually, because I hate the wall balls. They're at the end. You just want it to be over. You can see the finish line. You can also see the time on your watch, so you sort of know where you're going to finish based on how long the wall balls normally take you. I have scenarios in my head where I'm like, oh, if I could just finish them in 3 minutes, that'd be a PB. It's not actually possible not possible for me to do 100 wall balls in 3 minutes. So I'd say the wall balls are my least favourite, but I'm trying to make them a favourite. So that then gives way to other stations, doesn't it? I think the burpees. I think that I've practiced and I'm still rubbish at them. I say rubbish, I'm not rubbish, but I still hate them. They still absolutely ruin me. So I think burpees are my least favourite. My absolute favourite, I think farmer's carry. I've never dropped them ever. So I'd like to say farmer's carry, because I do them in about 1 minute 16 to 1 minute 25. So it's like over, but then equally with the farmer's carry, it's over so quick, you're back out into another run. Farmer's carry is my favourite, and then burpees are my least favourite. Another question is, where do most people go wrong with their first HYROX? It's a very good question. So I think people go wrong with underestimating just how hard it's going to be. So you have this sort of humbling factor, like you can train all you want for it, but nothing ever replicates that race feel. So it's all well and good, obviously, doing simulations, but nothing ever replicates that race feel. So I'd say it's not a mistake, but it's just going into it knowing that it's probably going to be a little bit harder than you expect. Another mistake, or another thing where people go wrong, I think, is they don't train their running enough. So HYROX for me is a running race with some added strength sessions, whereas a lot of people see it as a bit of a circuit training with some runs, but it is a running race with some stations. So people don't train hard enough from a running perspective. And it's not so much a thing, I think, where people go wrong, but another one would be when you're in that start tent at the beginning and nerves are high and your heart is already through the roof, your heart rate. I think you can get pulled into racing other people because they're around you, and you sort of naturally do think, I need to beat you, or you shouldn't be faster than me, or they, just little things. Like, I feel like people judge people by what trainers they've got on, what clothes they've got on. And I personally think that you should just race your own race and don't get sucked in. But it's really hard not to when it's your first go. And it's just trusting that process and knowing that somebody might overtake you on certain stations, but you don't know how that's going to affect them, and you don't know their training, you don't know their fitness abilities. So realistically, they could push the sled really fast and you'll think, geez, why am I not that fast? Then you could overtake them on the run because they've absolutely obliterated themselves. So there's a lot of things to take into account. Not taking it for what it is, underestimating the gravity of sort of how hard it can be. Racing people and not racing your own race, getting sucked in, going out hot, and then letting that ruin your race. And again, not training the running as hard. And then last question is, any tips on taking minutes off your HYROX time? And again, that's a tough question because there's so many different ways you can take time off. But some of the most obvious, I would say, is always make sure you're moving. So never stop. What I mean is, when you come in from the run, don't walk. Always be moving, always be running. The rock zone can take up so much of your time that as long as you just stay moving, not walking, you know, that's gonna take off an absolute ton of time. And then as for everything else, just have a plan. You know, the plan might go out the window, but have a plan and trust it. So, you know, when it comes to walking lunges, think, right, if I can't do 100 meters in a row, I'm gonna do, you know, 20 meters, and I'm gonna kick my legs and have a rest. 20 meters, kick my legs, have a rest. Same with burpees, same with wall balls, you know, have an amount that you can stick to. So, and then finish off this video with this zone 2 workout. So I'm currently averaging about 170 watts, heart rate 113, perfect, just where I want it to be. That's just top end zone 1, bottom end zone 2. Yeah, next video is gonna be Glasgow. Stay cool, and I'll speak to you all soon.